Hey, welcome back to the Jesus Magnet podcast. We're in Christchurch right now on the road traveling around New Zealand, and we are blessed to have Hineatu with us today. How you doing, Hineatu?
I'm doing good, thanks, Joel.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We're super excited to hear your story. Hineatu attends church.
Yeah.
And we got to meet her at an awesome Bible study. Shout out to Dean and Bronwyn for letting us come to their Bible study. And Hineatu is such a lovely lady. We were told by many people that Hineatu's got a very, very neat testimony. See if she's available to share. And we hadn't even met her face to face. And this guy called Dean runs up to me and goes, "I've got Hineatu on the phone. Talk to her and get her on the podcast." So we just chat on the phone through a mutual friend, and he set it up. So thank you, Dean, for doing that. And we're super excited to hear your story, Hineatu. And we'll just pass it over to you. So we're at the moment we're in Christchurch, but we are super keen to hear this story. I hear it's an intense one. So if you're listening, strap your seatbelts on and be ready for an awesome testimony, one that's got God all through it. So let's pass it over to you.
Thank you. I'm just trying to think where to start. So I was born and raised in Tauranga.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm the youngest child out of 4. So I've got 2 older brothers and an older sister.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a non-religious family, except for my grandmother.
Okay. Was your grandmother Christian?
My grandmother was a Christian, yeah, in her sort of later years.
Yeah.
Because I remember, being in her room and she would pray all night. And she would pray for like cats and dogs and like family and, just so many different people. So I remember that, when I was young. But besides her, there was no other sort of Christians in my family.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
So, yeah. And how can I say this? My upbringing was a tough one. We, as a family, we went through a lot of hard things. And when I was young, we were actually attacked by a gang.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So I was only 5.
5 years old. Wow.
And my sister, at the time, she was 17 and she was pregnant.
Yeah.
And so I remember like the trauma and just, the events of that attack come to mind. And so we were moved, we had to get moved out of the area.
So it's like the whole family?
The whole family,
Wow.
Yep. They came after our whole family. And then we moved. We were still in the same town. But my brother, he not retaliated, but he, to try and get rid of them, like fend them off, he was only 16 at the time, he went and got a gun and then shot at them.
Oh.
No one died, but that sort of sequence of events set him up to go to prison for what turns out now a very long time. He's, he didn't go to prison for a long time then, but it sort of set him on the path of, offending.
Yeah.
Like he was put into prison at a young age and then, got out and stuff, but he'd already learnt those ways.
Yeah.
But my brother that day, he saved our lives, so,
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it was just a childhood that was really difficult.
So when you say difficult, was that difficult in the sense that you and your family struggled to get along together, or
We got along together. Like I was the youngest, so my older brothers and sisters, they were the next one up from me, Damie. He's like 9 years older than me, and then my other brother was like 10 years older than me, and then my sister, the oldest, at 12 years older than me.
okay,
Yeah, wow.
So I was like the
Yeah,
little
way
one,
younger. Yeah.
with no one to really relate to.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of addictions in my family. So it was just what felt like a lot of, I felt really rejected growing up as a child and unloved and just a whole bunch of those sorts of feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my sister and my brothers, they looked after me. Yeah.
So it was a distance in the sense that you didn't get along on that same maturity level as any of your siblings because they were almost a decade older than you. Some were a little bit more than a decade.
Yeah.
And but they were able to shelter you and make sure that you were okay. Sort of.
Yeah, like they, like my older sister, she pretty much took me everywhere she went,
Yeah.
If she was going to the movies, I'd go with her.
Oh, that's cool.
And I kind of, like, I love that she done that, but from this side of it, seeing it from this side, I feel like her childhood was robbed a bit.
Oh,
True.
true.
Always having to look after these
Yeah.
younger children, and she was just like always looking after us, and she's still looking after people now,
Wow.
So, but I am thankful that she looked after me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good. If she ends up listening to this, she'll be able to hear that, how thankful you are of that.
Yeah. Thanks, Mel. Love you. I know she's going to listen to this.
Yeah. Awesome.
Oh, cool. So what happened? So you and your family moved to another area.
Yep.
Your
In the same town.
Yeah.
So, it was just pretty much, the standard thing,
Did you move around a lot? Because
No, we just moved when I was like 5. Yeah, about 5. And then we stayed where we went
yeah.
for a few years.
Okay, so it was just like a one event sort of thing that happened with the gangs
Yeah.
that came around, and did it have anything to do with your family? Like, were
Yes.
they were
Yeah.
affiliated?
Someone in my family. I actually don't even know the full story because, it's not really talked about.
Yeah.
But from what I gather, it was someone in my family had a run-in with
Okay.
one of the, leaders or something, and then they had, chased them home
Oh, okay.
and, brought everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right, so you're 5 years old. You've moved from this gang that's attacked your family.
Yeah.
Your brother
Is now,
sacrificed his almost innocence to defend the family,
yeah,
which at the time was over for a protection, and he's gone down that sort of road of maybe a little bit more violent, has he? Like from that
Yes.
exposure to that?
yeah.
That
Well, it
was the-
started,
Yeah,
then when he was young,
yeah,
because that was the last time that I sort of remember him being a normal brother.
yeah,
Like now he's institutionalized and he's been in and out of prison for most of his life.
yeah,
He's in there now, this time for a very long time. Probably won't get out till he's like almost 60.
wow,
So he's done a long time
yeah,
for violence, mostly violent crimes.
yeah,
So, yeah, life was, life. Don't really know how to describe it. But I kind of feel to talk about like the events that sort of triggered like real trauma, in my life.
Yep.
To sort of get some understanding of, where I came from and then where I went to.
yeah,
So, so from 5 to 15, I carried on going to school, all that sort of stuff. And then at 15, my brother that's 9 years older than me, Damie, he committed suicide. And so that was a real, like, low point for me.
Yeah.
wow, yeah,
I was really close to him. And so, yeah, when that happened, I became suicidal after that, after he died. And I can remember his funeral, just wanting to be buried in the same grave as him. Like, I didn't even care if I was buried alive. I just didn't want to be here anymore. And so because I was like that, hang on a second, rewind,
yeah.
sorry.
We can rewind.
So
yeah.
just before that, my parents separated.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. And then my brother, we moved in with my mum, and my brother done that. And then because they labelled me a para-suicide. So that's someone that tries to kill themselves a lot. I got put into the local mental health ward.
oh, okay,
Trying to find a nice term for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I was there at about between 15 and 16, and I was too young to be in the adult ward,
yeah,
but there was nowhere else for them to sort of put me. So, yeah.
So did your brother's suicide get you to that point where you're in the mental ward at the
Yes.
hospital?
So I tried to kill myself
Yeah,
again after he died. And, I OD'd on pills. And so they done the stomach pump
yeah.
thing.
Can I ask if you, at that point when your brother committed suicide and you were at your lowest point where you wanted to join him, were you ever thinking, God, if you're out there? or did any of those sort of thoughts come up?
No. So it wouldn't have been till after he died I met these twin sisters. And it was not long after I got out of the mental health ward that I met them. And one of the sisters, both Christian ladies, were the ones who told me about Jesus.
Oh, wow.
So, like, during that, like, I didn't know God, but I was hearing voices and, just, voices saying, just kill yourself and all that sort of stuff. And from the beginning, from since I was young, I've seen things. So I've seen or heard things that other people can't. And so like all that around that, like before the mental health ward, like being there, I felt like I kind of like belonged in a weird way because I understood those people in there. Like they saw things too, and it was like a relief.
Do you think it's like you're quite attuned to maybe the spiritual, and that's the things that you were seeing that you didn't quite realise?
Yes, because, like it wasn't like when I was younger and saw things or whatever, if you try and talk about it with people, they kind of think you're nuts. So I just tried to like not mention that to anyone unless that sort of conversation came up, If people started talking about that, then I'd be like opening up, to my experiences and stuff. But yeah, it was definitely a time of like, when I look back, I was coming into awareness, of like what I was seeing and stuff was the spirit realm and not you're crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So how long were you in the hospital?
So I was in there, I think I was in there like 2 weeks to a month, but then I got transferred to Starship because they had a children's ward underneath the main, like an actual mental health ward for children. And that was like brutal. That place was brutal.
You're 15, 16 at this time?
Yeah. And I don't know what's going on. Like all I know is like I just don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
Because of the loss.
So you had fully moved out of home at that point?
Well, I was at home beforehand.
And then
but then my brother, done that, and then I was sent there because I
were a danger to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. And like it was like such an interesting experience. Like I look back and there were people in there that, like, there were anorexic girls,
Yeah.
and I couldn't understand why they, like, at the time, I loved those like little calcium yogurts, those milk ones. And this girl, she would just like, oh, you can eat all my yogurts, and I was like, you're weird, like this is the best food that they've got in here, and she's like, yeah, this is where my yogurts are kept, in this fridge. And like it took me a while to understand, like, oh, she's an anorexic. Like I knew she was skinny, but I didn't know she was like that skinny, that she had that problem. And it was just a real I don't know, a tumultuous time for me.
So having that experience in the mental ward, you're now, looking back at that, able to understand people's mental health on a significantly higher level.
Yes, and I have a lot of compassion because of that experience.
Yeah.
You know, like when I was there, I was like in my own bad mental health state. And I just thought, you know, these people are all crazy. You know, they've got this all wrong. Because I was young as well. But now when I look back and when I know what I've, you know, lived through basically since then, I understand, you know, where they were at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's quite incredible, really. I think my grandma was in a mental ward for a little while as well, and I 100% know that she has tremendous compassion for people now.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how you sometimes have to climb those mountains or go down into those valleys that deep, and when you come out, there's something stronger, there's something strengthened, and there's an awareness that you didn't have before. And you have to look back now and go, all right, you know, that was brutal. But God allowed me to go through that, and now I'm stronger. It's the same thing about going to the gym, isn't it? You know, your muscles hurt and ache, but then that's because they're stretching and growing.
It builds your endurance.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you go through, just build your endurance up. Yeah.
That's really good. So what happened? So you were there for about 2 months, did you say? 2 weeks to 2 months?
Yeah, 2 weeks to 2 months because they were in between. Like they said, oh, you can't stay at this adult ward.
Yeah, okay.
Sent me up to Auckland, from Tauranga to Auckland. And
Was there a lot of kids in the younger one?
Yes.
There was.
And a lot of kids with different issues, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, you know, like when we got in there, I said, oh, you know, strip your bags out, bag check. And I was like, why, you know?
Yeah.
And then they were looking for like razor blades and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then there was a girl in there that, this was 1999. So there was a girl in there that was idolising those Columbine killers. I don't know if you remember. If you're
Not sure what they are.
maybe you're not old enough to remember them. Maybe. Well, around 99 there was, you know, these teenagers in America that, you know, I think killed their whole classroom or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And so there was a girl in there with me that had a problem with like idealising them and stuff like that, and she was my roommate. And
That's quite scary.
it was.
So they were
It was-
idolising a serial killer.
Yes. She was like, every night she'd be like, oh, you know, I'm going to kill people like, you know, they
Wow.
did. And I was like thinking to myself, what is this place, you know? Because
Yeah.
no one really explained to me, like, everyone with different issues comes here.
Yeah.
It was just like, you're trying to kill yourself, so we're going to put you here. Sort of
Yeah.
thing.
So you thought it would be the same sort of people.
Yeah.
Same issues.
Like
but-
everybody, you know, wanting to die sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was so varied, and I got exposed to like pretty much, every mental health condition you can think of in
Do you-
those young people.
Wow.
Do you think there's a link spiritually between some mental health issues? So there could be either some sort of demonic oppression happening over people that are getting
Definitely.
just constantly attacked.
Definitely, yep.
Yeah.
And also, I believe in generational curses
Yeah.
handed down.
Yeah. Well, that is biblical.
Yeah.
Generational curses and generational blessings as
Yeah.
well.
Yes.
Man, that's quite interesting listening to this. You know, like you've gone through, and we haven't even got to the part that we had talked about previously. This is all new, and but you'd gone through this mental health hospital, and it's amazing because we've just come out of this pandemic, right? It's 2022. I don't know what the date is. What is it? The 4th of
May.
May, and their mental health is at its peak. It's higher than it's ever been. Statistically, it's I don't know the statistics, but it is really, really high. And it's like God has equipped you back in those days to have that compassion and that understanding and knowing, all right, Hineatu, I'm going to put you here. I'm going to build this endurance here because it's going to peak here.
Yes.
And I'm preparing the soldier going through training here, different kind of training than war, but still war, spiritual war. And you're going to be battling for me here. And how cool is that? You know, it's pretty. I mean, it's not cool. It's amazing.
It's
I
pretty
think.
awesome when you realize that it is that.
Yeah.
But when you're
When you're going through it.
walking through the dark and
Yeah.
you don't know, you know,
No. That's
because
it.
I'm 39 now, and I've only just, I think from 35, woken up to that
Yeah.
realization. Because
Yeah.
before that it was like, you know, woe is me. Why is this my life? Like, is everybody else have a messed up life like this or what? You know, I
Yeah.
didn't know
Yeah.
what to think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So you had been talking to these sisters that were at the. Were they at the mental ward? Is that
No,
right?
so like I had a demonic attack, and it freaked me right out. This was after I got out of the ward.
What happened? If you don't mind me asking, you don't
Well,
have to answer.
I had one before my brother passed away. I had an attack on me, and basically, this demon came and told me my brother was going to kill himself.
Wow.
He actually told me the whole order of when my family members were going to die, starting with my brother.
Seriously.
Yes. And I was only, I think this happened when I was about 12 or 13, so this is a couple of years before my brother died. But it was really, really freaky. And yeah, so
Did he come in a dream or did he come?
in the physical,
He came in the physical.
Yeah.
Just in your bedroom.
yeah, and pinned me down to the bed and then spoke to me and said, you know, in that mocking voice that they speak in, I don't know if, you know, you've heard that
Yeah.
voice, and just basically mocked me and said, you know, ha ha ha, Hineatu, your brother's going to kill himself.
Wow.
And then, you know, proceeded to tell me what would happen to the rest of my family. And I was like, I didn't understand what any of that was. Like, to me, I just called them the night monsters, you know, or Mr. Blobby. Like, if I saw things when I was younger, I always tried to explain away what was going on. But other people in my family are spiritual as well. So they saw things too. But
Yeah.
I just didn't know to what degree until I started opening up about it, you know, like asking my grandma things and stuff like that. And then she was like, oh, that's normal, you know,
Wow.
like to see those devils, she would say.
Yeah.
Wow. So that was your first one, and then once you got out of the ward, you had another one, another.
Oh, I've been getting
Jack?
demonically attacked since I was young.
Oh wow.
But that was your grandma,
that was-
the Christian grandma
Yes,
that had told you that they're real.
yes.
It's interesting that they say that because some Christian grandmas these days will try and shelter people,
Yeah.
shelter their grandchildren about that, and say that it's the boogeyman and it's just in their mind rather than.
Well, my grandmother was, before she became a Christian, she was, you know, heavily into Māoridom
Okay.
and all that stuff that comes
Do you
with
want to
it.
explain what that is for our listeners?
So just, I would call it witchcraft practices,
Yeah.
you know. She would talk to spirits and stuff, and leave them like bread or water or whatever. And she had, like there's gifts that God gives us. But my grandmother had like a very strong prophetic gifting, and like I think when you're not with the Lord,
Yeah.
those gifts are used on the other
Absolutely.
side, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
So like she just knew things. She knew like when my brother died, she was the first phone call in.
Yeah.
She rung in like a minute
Wow.
Wow.
after he died, and I answered the phone and was like, went to go and tell her, and she said, I know, because the wind is blowing at my house. And I was like, what's that got to do with, my
Oh.
brother being dead? And she said, because when he would come and mow my lawns,
Yeah.
the wind would always blow inside of my house when he was here, even though it wasn't windy outside.
Yeah.
So she knew it was him.
Wow.
Wow.
And just things like that,
Man.
So, yeah.
All right. So what happened after you had gone through the mental ward up at Starship? You had experiences with this serial killer idealist, and then broken away from that to return back to Tauranga?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so one of those twins, they were friends with my best friend's mum, who was a Christian lady. And I was getting like so demonically attacked that I was desperate. Like, I didn't know where else to sort of go. I'm young. If I tell the hospital, they say you're having another episode or something, let's send the respite team. I didn't want to be on their medicine. They had diagnosed me with having like clinical depression and schizophrenia and all these other things, and they were feeding me up on their medicine. But I felt like I was a zombie,
Yeah.
and I hated their medicine. And like looking back, I was grieving, but they didn't see that.
Yeah.
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 So
Understandably, really. You just lost your brother.
yeah.
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 I guess, though, for me, the grief was like, towards them, it probably looked different than grief because I've always seen things. And so that was like hyper, I was
Yeah,
hearing
true.
voices, so that's why they were like, oh, you might be schizophrenic. And because it's not normal to hear voices,
Yeah.
but that's all the spirit realm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had this guy on the podcast a little while ago. His name's Remy, and he had always heard voices in his head, and he attuned them to his voices. And they were voices like, go sleep with this girl, and very much like around sexual encounters.
Yes.
And he honestly thought that it was just his thoughts. And then he had this moment when he was surrounded by some Christian friends, and he went into a demonic episode, and they prayed for him. And then when he came out of it, he said, for the first time in my life, my mind is silent.
Yep.
And he didn't realize. He said, I thought they were my voices. I thought they were my thoughts. But they weren't my thoughts.
No.
He said, for the first time, they're silent.
It's awesome. They're
Yeah.
planted there.
So was that similar to
Yes.
your experience? You had
Yeah.
these thoughts coming through, and
Yeah, just telling me, kill yourself. You're not loved. You're not wanted. There's nobody left now that you really love. Because like I said, my brother, we were very close.
Yeah.
I'd go hang out with my friends or something, and he would like walk, he thought I didn't know, but he would be like not far behind me, like if I was going somewhere,
Yeah.
you know, and it was late or whatever, my brother would always be close by.
Wow.
And like I know that he tried to keep his distance because, you know, I was a teenager and stuff, but I always saw him like close by when I was, you know, out and about, like especially at dark time.
Yeah.
But like even if I'd go and play at the park or whatever, he would be a stone's throw away. And half the time I didn't realise that, but I, you know, as I started getting a little bit older, I was like, my friends were like, oh, why's your brother always, you know? And I was like, oh, he just keeps an eye on me,
Yeah.
you know?
Wow.
It was kind of embarrassing, but at the same time, really like reassuring.
Yeah.
Yeah, because our neighbourhood wasn't the best.
Yeah, you had that safety right there.
Yeah, and you know all the stuff that had happened, you know, from when I was young was still sort of swirling around because we were still in the same town.
Yeah.
So you live on edge,
Yeah.
you know, of like, oh, is this the day, you know, that they're going to come back again?
Yeah. Just never knowing.
Yeah, because in all of that, my brother joined the rival gang. So
Oh, the 16-year-old one at the time
Yeah.
that was
He-
shooting.
to keep himself safe, because after that, you know, he had a target on him. And so I guess to keep himself safe, he thought, you know, I'll join the rival gang. And so I was like in my head at that time thinking, well, they could come back or just whatever.
Yeah.
And them aside, the neighbourhood wasn't safe. It was full of like alcoholics and drug addicts and yeah.
So, how long until you moved to Christchurch?
So I think I moved to Christchurch in 2001. I came down here to study IT. And yeah, that was when I first moved here. I've lived in Christchurch a few times.
Oh, okay. Back and forth.
Yes. Yeah. So I moved down here 2001, I think it was. And I come down here, like I had an auntie that was living here, but besides her, no other family. But I just wanted to get away from, it was like, you know, I look back and you can't leave the past behind because you take it with you,
Yeah.
sort of in a sense. But I just didn't want to, I thought, you know, I chose Christchurch on a map
Oh, yeah.
with a spin the bottle. I had
really?
three, so there was 3 places that I could go, move to for this course. One was Auckland, one was Wellington, and one was Christchurch. And so the bottle spinned onto Christchurch, and I said to my friend, you know, wherever this bottle lands, I'm going to move there and enroll at that school.
Yeah.
And she was like, you know, that's just crazy, you know. But I done that, and Christchurch was the one, and I found out, oh, I've got an auntie there, so that worked out. But then I met my ex-partner now. And then throughout the years we had 2 children. And it just all went downhill from there. Well, it was already going downhill, but it went further downhill. Yeah.
So, can you explain what does downhill mean?
So, all of this is what I could see when I look back, but none of it could I see when I was there. So it's like a hindsight view.
Yeah.
So basically, he was a drinker. And when we first met, he said that he was just, after work. He led me to believe that he was a social sort of drinker.
Yeah.
And I had, a problem with alcoholics. Like, I didn't want to be with an alcoholic
Yeah.
just because of my upbringing. And
Did one of your parents, they had lots of drinking?
yes,
Yep.
I was brought up around a lot of drinking.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
It's quite common in New Zealand, isn't it?
yes,
The drinking
culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I didn't want to be with an alcoholic. But he had said, I just, drink socially or after work or whatever. And so I saw no problem with that because I thought, well, if you're working hard, then sure, But it became very apparent that that was not true. And so, he was a heavy drinker, a binge drinker, and it just was toxic. Like, I was always looking after him, it's always spewing up, and it affected everything.
And you had 2 little kids?
Yes,
at this
by
time
then.
as
Well, it's a real intense story. So, when my oldest daughter was born, she was taken into oranga tamariki care when she was only a few months old. And that was because she had a fractured femur and some kind of head injury.
So is that's child support workers, is it? That care?
That's no.
Just for those that can't speak Māori.
So
maybe
that's
listening around the
Child,
world.
Youth and Family Services.
Okay.
Yep. That's what they used to be known as. So she was injured, and then taken. I took her to the hospital because I wasn't home at the time. But when I come home, I took her to the hospital because she was crying, and I thought something's wrong.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, was what had happened.
To that
Yeah.
extent, yeah.
No way. So I was sitting there, freaking out, and just in disbelief, basically, and I didn't know what had happened, what the story was, and I wasn't allowed to be sort of near her. There were people watching, and
Wow.
and
So
then the
they
police,
had thought that you had somehow caused this.
they had thought that I had intentionally hurt her.
Yeah. Wow.
And like, I was a new mum, first child, and just...
So how old was your eldest daughter at this point?
She was like maybe 3 or 4 months old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Real young.
Yep, really young. And like, I didn't know what had happened to her, but I was like, something has obviously happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, so apparently, there were other people around, and, just all this stuff. And we had a fight. Me and her father had a fight, and he had shoved me into her cot, the night before. And so in my mind, I was thinking it might have something to do with that. But then I was like, nah, because she was fine after that, And so, the police investigated it, and then, nothing further came, but Child, Youth and Family kept her.
Wow. That's really rough.
Yeah.
Especially when she's so young, only 3 or 4 months old.
I was heartbroken,
Yeah.
you know, because I didn't know what the story was. But, like, when I look back, he didn't want a child.
Okay.
And so he never said that, though. And, yeah, when I look back, he was very nasty towards us after she was born. Like, it was like everything was okay. I mean, he was still an alcoholic and, you know, all of that. But everything was okay with us until she was born. It was like this intense jealousy came, yeah, when she was born.
Wow.
Wow.
But I never saw any of that either at the time. I was just like always coming up with excuses like, oh, maybe he's just adjusting to being a dad, you know, and all this other stuff. And
Yeah, you're always trying to look on the brighter side, you know.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
it's
and you
just a
don't like know,
season sort of
you
thing.
know, you don't actually like, because I was a new parent and I was like, well, of course the relationship's going to change and stuff. And like when he'd get angry or whatever, I would excuse away his behaviour, you know, like, oh, he's had a hard day at work and there's a newborn and, oh, I should have cleaned up and just all this other stuff. And I would do that because I was brought up that way. You know, that's the other thing. So I was like conditioned through the way my family was to be like that. You know, like I didn't know anything was wrong because that was our normal.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting. You're taking the problem and you're reflecting it onto yourself rather than looking at it more objectively. And including your partner in potentially being the problem, but always going, maybe it must be something I'm doing. And that happens a lot today.
yeah,
Yeah.
and because you're because you're I don't know how to explain it, but being in like it's like if you're in a dysfunctional environment, you just get more of that,
Yeah.
you know? And it's the same as like I didn't know what healthy relationships looked like, and I was such a person that was so rejected, so looking for love. I was the prime target for someone like that, you know? I was caring, I was kind, I would go above and beyond. And so when you're like that, people will take you for a ride,
Yeah.
you know? Like they'll really use you, and I had no boundaries. Like boundaries are only a concept I've recently discovered. And so, yeah, years and years of that, just, it got progressively worse, like the relationship, you know, because in the back of my mind I was thinking always about that time, like when she was in hospital and stuff, and like who done it, and I wanted someone to be held accountable. And
Yeah.
Did you ever find out?
yes, I did, and we'll come to that at the end of my story. But just, yeah, it was a really, really tough place to be in. I was 21 years old and newborn, didn't even know how to look after the baby. Just learnt on the road, I guess, how to be a mum and stuff like that. And then, so yeah, she was taken away by the government. And then we stayed together for a little bit, and then we split up. And then I moved to Hamilton and went to a program for mums and stuff, because I was like, no, I want my daughter back.
Yeah.
And I stayed there in the residential place. And I think she was about 16 months or around there when I got her back in my care.
Wow.
And then we moved, to another place.
That's a long time not having her.
Yeah.
It was a really long time.
Did you get to go visit?
Oh, yeah, so she was a few months, maybe 8 months or something like that but between 8 to 12 months before they allowed me to, we moved in together to the Nest. It's a program where, mums do parenting courses and the kids are there, and then you've got supervision and all that sort of stuff. But that whole process was just, it was real crazy. Because on one hand, my mind was who done this?
Yeah.
The other hand, I'm getting accused of doing it.
Yeah, you're the one
Yeah.
that gets the blame on it.
And you had to go through all of that.
And I wasn't home when it happened, And so it was
That's rough. Yeah.
I don't know what to say to you, but I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But so I went to this course and stuff and moved in with her, and that was good, rebonding time. And, everything was fixed on her and stuff like that. But then it would have been, I don't know how much longer, maybe 6 months or 7 months later, I got back with her dad. And then had my next daughter. And by this stage, he couldn't, keep a job or just, he was real bad with his drinking. And I'm pretty sure he was doing drugs then, but I didn't know at the time. But the behaviour was so erratic. When I look back, I was like, oh, yeah, he was, on some kind of drugs. And again, I didn't really notice it because I was busy trying to be a mum.
Yeah.
Your focus was entirely on your daughters.
Yeah, on my kids, and when I look back, sometimes in those early years, my oldest daughter sometimes asks me, why did you stay, And I said to her, at the beginning, I stayed because I wanted my children to have a father.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a single mum without my kids having a dad. I thought that was the worst thing in the world for them. Turns out the worst thing in the world was staying.
Wow.
But again, I didn't have that. I didn't have the hindsight that I have now, or the foresight that I have now.
Yeah.
Back then. So, yeah. So after that happened, we got back together, and it was just domestic violence and just a toxic relationship. There were good moments, but we were so wrong for each other. He was not the person that God had set aside for me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't good either. I'm not trying to put all the blame on him. But it was just, we were like the opposites of each other.
Wow.
There was something very, polar magnets drawn to each other. And if we were good together, we were really good. But if we were bad, we were just
really bad.
Really bad.
Wow.
So, yeah, I just endured that. I don't know how. I think just by suppressing it. Somehow I just got up and lived another day, and I just focused myself around my kids,
Yeah.
kindy mum and, you know, baking, and just threw myself into all of that sort of stuff. And somewhere along the way I lost myself too, I used to be, I felt like I was a person, like a person with more, what's the word for it? Like more, not characters. What's that word for like when you're not just a mum, you're, yourself, and then you're.
Oh, when you're two-faced?
No, not two-faced. Like I used to feel like a full person before.
Oh, yeah. Now you're like a sort of diluted.
Yeah. And I became like, I felt like, oh, I'm just a mum
Empty.
now, and that's all I do. I'm just a mum, and I loved being a mum because my heart really, all I ever wanted to be in life was be a mum, like if I had one wish. But it felt just isolating because of the relationship.
Yeah.
Like, it was like not just being a mum, it was like taking on everything. I had to pay all the bills and it was just really abusive.
What would you, if you were able to talk to yourself, your past self, what would be some advice?
Get out.
Get out?
That's
so if
not love.
If you're in an abusive relationship,
Yeah. It's not love.
worth staying?
No. I would have ran.
Yep.
Yeah. If I knew what I know now, I would have ran, real quick.
So how long were you with this man?
About 15 years.
Oh, wow. That's quite a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On again, off again, but 15 years. And then, so later on, we moved to Perth. So we left Christchurch and we moved to Perth. And that's when, the next level dramas started happening. So while I was in Perth, I got introduced to methamphetamine. And I hadn't done it while I was here, but growing up, I was exposed to all sorts of drugs.
Yeah.
I'd seen it before. Yeah. But I hadn't, I knew, inside of me that it was a bad drug. Because, how you see all the ads on TV?
Yeah.
Don't,
They're not even once.
Yeah.
Ads,
Because those ads were going around, before I, tried it. But there was so much, in my head I thought, you're you're in control of your own life. If the drug surely can't have that much.
Was there a
sort of
moment, was there a moment that made you go, what was the moment that made you tilt towards, okay, maybe I will try it? What happened?
So it was my ex-partner. So I believe that he was on it already.
Right.
And life was just toxic with us and it was really hard to bear. But I put on a brave face all the time. I've pretty much done that my whole life. Just, been through some intense, traumatizing things and I just shelve it because I couldn't cope with it.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize at the time was that by you shelving it and not dealing with it and not processing it and not expressing it, you're just setting yourself up for a dramatic fall when it all comes tumbling down because you can't just keep stacking things underneath no rug and expect, you're just going to climb the mountain all the time.
It's like bottling
it has to end. It has to come, back at some stage, And so, this was all going on, internally, and he was going to work in Perth and doing drugs. And just like there's a big drug culture over there, you know,
Okay.
because of the money,
Right.
excess money and stuff like that. And it's something I never ever thought I would get into, you know. Like I didn't drink. I was quite straight
Yeah.
for someone that's, you know, had my life.
Yeah. You've had all the excuses to probably dive into alcohol or
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to because I've seen, you know, like some
Seen the
people go
destructiveness.
into it
Yeah.
Yeah.
and some people turn away, you know. And that's my, you know, relationship with alcohol. I just don't like it. I mean, I could have a couple, but I would never get hooked on alcohol
yeah.
Yeah.
because of what I've seen it, you know, do. So in my mind, though, when you think of methamphetamine, some kind of justification happens in your head, like, oh, this is not alcohol,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
this
that's
might
true.
be okay, you know?
Yeah.
And so while that process was going on in my head, like, should I do it? That undertone of grief, trauma, and like there was a lot of violence happening. So it was like I wanted an escape.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, it's just going to be this one time. So we're at a pub and my ex was drinking and stuff. And then there was a guy there that was selling it. And it was like in its pure form. And I remember like my ex saying, you know, we should buy that. And I was like, nah, you know, I was a bit tipsy at the time. I remember, but I was like, how much is that, you know? And he was like, oh, it's only $100 or something like that. And I was like, you know, what does it do? So yeah, he was just like really like pressuring me to buy it.
Do you
Yeah.
think maybe because you had the money, or he just kind of wanted some and you knew kind of how to
well,
get it?
Now I know what I know, which
Yeah.
was that he was on it.
Yeah.
And so he wanted a fix and he wanted me to pay for it,
Yeah, right.
but didn't want to make it look like he was already on it.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, you know, and they didn't say it was meth. The guy just said, you know, you should try some of this, you know. So I was a bit naive like that because I thought,
That's actually probably some really good advice for anybody listening. If anybody offers you something, you know, you might not even realize what you're about to do. So if you say to yourself, like you said, Hineatu, you would never see yourself doing meth. If he had said, yeah, it's meth, would there have been a different outcome?
I think that I would have thought, you know,
Yeah.
twice about that. Because in my head, I was like anti-meth. You know, like I'd heard on the, you know,
Well, yeah.
show what had happened and stuff. But I didn't really,
There's pretty good ads on it, eh?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I still remember those ads, you know. But it was presented in a different way as well. Like I hadn't seen it in its whole crystal form.
Right.
So it wasn't solid. He came with like a solid rock.
Oh, really?
And I was like, what are you supposed to do with this, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
What do you suck on it?
like I'd been exposed to so much drugs like in my life. Like I knew what cocaine looked like and
Yeah.
all those other things. And I was like, oh, this must just be, you know, not too bad sort of thing. But they call it by different names in Australia, you know.
Right.
And so, anyways, I brought it. And then I think my ex-partner, you know, took some out of it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I still wasn't interested in it, you know. So I actually didn't have any of it that night.
Right.
he took some out and then, said to me, put this in your bag and don't lose it or whatever. And I was like, okay. And then it would have been the next day, I was like, hungover and thinking, I've got drugs. And I actually didn't touch it for a whole week.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, there's rock on you.
Yep, it just sat in my cupboard for a whole week.
How big was it?
It wasn't that big because it was only $100, which is...
So like as big as a 10-cent coin?
No, like...
Smaller than that?
Like your fingernail or something?
Maybe a fingernail.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
And you don't get a lot for it. But over there is more pure than here in New Zealand. So, so it stayed up there, and I just sort of, done my school week with the kids and stuff. And then the weekend came, and then my ex-partner was like, oh, what did you do with that bag you got? And I was like, oh, it's still up in the cupboard. Why? And he was like, oh, I thought you would have, taken it by now. And I was like, I don't even know what you're supposed to do with it. And he said, oh, well, you don't have a pipe. And like, again, did not realise all of this paraphernalia.
Yeah.
Like that he knew all of that and I didn't, and like I didn't click onto that.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, you don't have a pipe, so you should just crush it up and snort it. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then so he took another piece of it and then went off to work. And while he was at work, I thought, oh, I'm going to try this. And so I done what he said, and then just got really, really high. Like, just, it transforms it gives you a false sense of euphoria.
Wow.
It gives you a false sense of everything is fine. Well, this is the first time.
Yeah.
They say that the first time is the time that, you can't beat.
All right, and that's how people get hooked, because you always want that same.
Yes, you're always chasing that first high.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're always your highs after that aren't the same as that first time, that first sense of euphoria.
How long does it last?
That depends on the purity of whatever you're taking.
Yeah.
The less pure it is, the less effects that it has on you.
Now, did you find that you were, because I know with lots of drugs, sometimes people almost see the spiritual a little bit more real, or is this a little bit different?
At that time, like on that first time, no. But subsequent times, yes.
Yeah.
I did start seeing into the spirit realm, and I just thought, it's because of the drugs,
Yeah.
because it opens the door, especially meth. But I just, like, after that first time, I just felt really what I thought was happy, but it's all false.
Yeah.
You're not really happy. It's a drug that brings on delusion. And so basically after that first time, I wanted it again, And then I started smoking it, injecting it. And then just, carried on like that.
Just creates that huge domino effect, because you get a real high, but then you almost get a little bit lower when you come off it. Is that right?
Yeah, so you get like this, what it does is it releases your happy hormones, your pheromones in your head, dopamines.
Yeah.
So like, when you workout or whatever, you know, after your workout you feel that release.
Yeah.
Well, it blows that reward center. The meth does that. So it like pushes the buttons, but you can't keep like demanding pleasure and the reward center from your brain without something else suffering. So when you come down, you're agitated, you're irritated, you're angry, you're just the opposite of euphoric, you know.
Yeah.
Almost becomes extremes.
It's
doesn't it?
depleted, you
Yeah.
know, it's depleted all of the feel-good hormones in your body. And then the lack of sleep, seeing things and just completely delusional drug changes who you are as a person. You know, alters you, numbs you to reality.
Wow.
And, you know, it starts with that beautiful, what seems as a beautiful high, and then it's robbing you.
Yeah.
Like, and you don't even know it because you think, oh, yeah, it's just, you know, I'm just getting high like before. But each time that you do it, it numbs you more and more and more until you're like, the bad is good and good is bad, basically.
Wow.
You know, you have no sense of morals and you just want the drug, basically. Do anything for the drug.
It starts to control your life.
It takes over.
Yeah.
Yep.
You become a slave to it, don't you?
Yep. Definitely a slave. Yep. And anything else doesn't matter. But you're hit.
So, how did your kids respond to knowing that you had started taking this? How old were they at this time when you moved to Perth?
They were 3 and 5, I think, around about that age.
Okay.
So they didn't know.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, I kept it very, like I had this mindset that like most drug users are the same, you know, fooling themselves. But we have these mindsets of like, if I just do it on these certain days, then I can be a controlled user.
Right.
You know, what they call functional
Yeah.
addiction.
Yeah.
And so it started off with that. So Monday to Friday, I'd be up for my kids, getting them all sorted, going to their sports, all of that. They were well looked after. And then I'd just like use on the weekends. And like that'd either be babysat or, you know, I would make sure that they weren't around that.
Yeah.
But then when the other addiction when it sort of took over, I don't think they like knew what was going on. Like there was a long period of times because they were too young and stuff. But I don't think they really knew what was going on until like a lot later. But it, just like me, they can look back and go, oh, that's why
Yeah.
your behaviour was weird and stuff like that. But they didn't actually know that I was on it over there. They thought I was just on it when we came back here. And so, yeah. But it was just a really dark place to be. Like once addiction took its full hold on me, everything that was already toxic just amplified itself. Because then now you've got 2 addicts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes you paranoid. You know, like we were just always fighting about cheating and You know, it makes you cheat. It just pretty much every single thing that you can think of that's bad, it'll bring out in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it'll turn you into a liar, a thief. You name it, it'll do it. And it's done in such a way that you don't even know.
Yeah.
Like, you're under a delusion
Yeah.
and you don't even know.
Yeah.
You think, oh, no, I'm woke, you know.
Yeah.
I'm wide awake and I know what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
But no,
No.
It sounds horrible.
it
Like,
was horrible.
and extremely scary.
And it preys on your traumas. You know,
Yeah.
like, it hit me so hard because I was so broken without knowing that I was broken. Like, all of those events and things that I'd been through in my life, like I was saying earlier, were stacked up on a shelf waiting to fall down.
Yeah.
I hadn't dealt with it. It was just like, oh yeah, so my brother died, you know, so what, you know,
Yeah.
that's what happens. That was like how I coped with the loss. And I'd done that throughout my whole life. Like when my parents divorced, oh well, they fought anyway, you know. I'd always just find a way to try and justify my pain and my trauma, but never dealt with it. So I had this bucket load of trauma, pain, met with addiction, and then a toxic relationship of someone of the same, you know, thing. And so, yeah, it just basically, all of that destruction culminated one night in 2018. And at the time, we were homeless because, you know, we couldn't live anywhere. Well, we were living somewhere, but the neighbours complained and, you know.
Was this still in Perth?
No, this is back here, sorry.
Yeah.
We'd come back here.
Okay.
So how long were you in Perth for?
3 years
Okay.
over there.
Yeah.
But I wanted to come back because I knew that if I didn't come back, I wasn't going to make it back.
Yeah.
I knew that the strug had me.
And you came back with your partner and the kids?
Yeah, so I was trying to get back by myself. I wanted to just come back with the kids. And I wanted to separate, you know, because it was so bad over there. Like, the violence was just like, God saved me.
Yeah.
You know, when I look back, I know God saved me. And I was trying to get away from that. But then I always had this, like, I don't know why, but like a glimmer of hope. Like, I'm always like, oh, you know, what if he changes and stuff like that. That was like a theme. And so he said, oh, you know, no, I want to come back. And I was like, oh, you know.
I suppose you can't hold him away from his kids as well. You know?
Yeah, well, it was really, really bad. It was like next level violence. So, like, he was like trying to stab, I was pregnant, and he was trying to stab my baby out of my stomach.
Wow.
And like, I didn't have any, well, I had a cousin over there, but I didn't have any family. And
didn't have that brother of protection.
Yeah, I didn't have
had when you were
anything,
younger.
you know. And by that stage, you know, I had rung my mum and my sister and told them, look, you know, I'm addicted to
Yeah.
meth, you know. And then my mum was worried because she's all the way over here. And they're like, you know, how did that happen and all that sort of stuff. And but it was just, it was becoming a fight over the drugs.
Yeah.
You know, like we'd just buy all these drugs and then the more you get into it, like you fiend. So you get really like addicted and then like it's a real twisted place. So, like, you just want it so bad that you'll, like, steal and lie. You know, so he was always wanting it and, you know, ripping me off and just a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't present at the beginning, you know, in the honeymoon phase, if you like, of the drug.
Yeah.
You know, where you only see the good effects. Now it was like all of my money was gone, all of his money was gone, but my kids were still eating.
Yeah.
You know, because I was like, no, my kids are going to eat and I'm going to do this before the drug. So that was still intact. But when we got back, it just, the whole theme of abuse and stuff is just like, it just carried on, and it was like insane violence. Just like, the dark things I've seen, I don't repeat. Not just in my life, you know, just that world is so dark, so demonic. You kind of like have to live there.
It's interesting
to know it.
Yeah, no, I've not that I understand this because I've never been down this road, but if we look at witch doctors and shamans and things like that, they usually use these different chemicals to enhance their mind to get to the point where they can talk face to face with these demons and things like that. And it makes you wonder, you know, what are they doing to stimulate which part of their brains, which open up that door to that spiritual realm, that then you've got these demons that you're talking to face, and they're doing things for you and you're doing things for them.
Yep.
And that's where it starts to lead.
Well, from a spiritual side of things, what you don't realise is that you doing those drugs, you're sinning before God. And what people don't understand is that opens the door there. That gives the demons legal right to come in, you know. Because like when I first started it, I was just like normal, you know, my normal self. And then after like a few weeks, then I'm lying to everyone, like concealing like from my mum and my sister and stuff like that. And then so like white lies turn into huge ones. And then like I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. And then like elaborate schemes are coming because you need to get more money to get more gear. More smoke, you know. But it just twisted me so much. Like it was like I went from being someone I knew to someone I didn't even recognize, and I didn't even know how I got there.
It's like little step by little step, and then suddenly you're
gradual.
Miles off.
Yeah, it felt like gradual, you know. Like at the time, it felt like the changes weren't even occurring. But this is what I speak about is all what I can see now, now that I'm out of it.
Yeah. So you came back to New Zealand and your partner came with you, even though you were trying to escape. Did you get a support group around in New Zealand, or were you still trying to get meth?
So in between that, so I got in another relationship while we were in Australia and had my youngest daughter.
Yep.
And that was not to my ex-partner.
Yep.
And that was where the whole, you know, he wanted to stab the baby out of my stomach thing came from.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't his child.
Yes.
Yeah, got it.
Yep. But then he was like, oh, okay, you know, we'll make a go of this and I'll be the dad and stuff. And I was like, okay, but I don't want to be on that anymore. So come back to New Zealand and live with my sister and my family for a bit. But my pregnancy was all messed up. I don't know whether it was because of the drugs or what. But I had to have her early.
Did you end up not needing the meth while you're on the drugs, or did you continue?
So when I went to hospital, they treated me as a drug seeker, and like they wouldn't give me medicine, or it was very,
Okay.
and I was like in my head, I was in real bad pain, and like I was in actual pain. I would scream, and and they wouldn't, they just like left me screaming there until one day I screamed like the whole building down.
Wow.
And then they all came running in.
And this was from like complications with the pregnancy? Or?
Yeah. I had like some nerve.
Man.
They found it later, but like they couldn't diagnose it while I was pregnant.
Yeah.
They had an idea, but all the things that I needed to do to confirm it, they couldn't do. Like they couldn't x-ray me because something would happen to the baby or something. They couldn't put me in that swirly machine. So they just done like the basic, like the baby.
Ultrasound or-
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just used those and stuff because they said, there's a big risk that the baby could get blinded or something like that. And I was like, well, I don't want that, you know. I'll just put up with the pain because it's not long to go now.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so they just said, wrote on my notes that I was a drug seeker for, I don't know, codeine or whatever their dumb drugs were. I was just like, in my head, I remember at the time thinking, man, I'm a crack addict, a meth addict, not codeine or
not codeine.
whatever these tramadol, I don't
Probably
even
quite
know.
low
like,
level compared.
just like do nothing but relieve pain,
Yeah.
Like downers, they just satisfy you, like keep you like pain free and like zombie. But I was addicted to uppers.
Yeah.
Meth that, makes you go running around like a,
Like you're a superhero sort of thing, yeah.
think you're bulletproof and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, why are they not giving me drugs that, will quell this pain? But even when they did give me the drugs, it didn't work because I had a nerve problem. So what was happening was, like normally when your brain's signalling pain, the nerves, there's a cut-off where the brain stops,
Oh, okay.
the end of the nerves from sending that signal.
Right.
But mine didn't have one, so it was like pain all the time. And so my daughter was born early, and for a little bit after that, I got off the drugs, and I was off the drugs when we got back from Australia,
Okay.
I just went, cold turkey, pretty much because of the pregnancy and sickness,
Yeah.
mainly the sickness,
Yeah.
He, of course, my ex, just carried on, said he was off it, but found out later he was buying it from locally. And then I got back on it again. And, so to cut a very, very long story a little bit shorter, and to get to the part where I got out of that world, so my children were homeless 2018, April, and my ex-partner assaulted me, and I called the police because it was a serious one, and the police came, took him away, left me there, and took my children. Said, this is not safe, They said that they were going to bring them back the next day, but that didn't happen. And so I was there, bashed up, injured, and I didn't get offered any medical help. They just took my children in one police car and took my ex-partner in another one.
Oh, wow.
And left me there. And I had no phone, no nothing, because he had smashed them all up, so I couldn't, I only had this little phone that rang the police in the beginning, but it had no credit or anything on it. And at this time, I was in a moon boot because I was in a car accident that almost, took me out a few months before this.
Wow.
Yep. So October 2017, I was in a car accident, and I had to get my leg metal put through it,
Yep.
and that was a process of two operations, giant ones, because the first one they didn't do it correctly, and my foot was malformed and I couldn't walk, so they had to go break it again. Oof. And then redo surgery. So I was in a moon boot, unable to walk very well anyway, before being, assaulted. And I was really messed up. Like, I didn't want to be living like that, but I was in a headspace of, like, fear. Where would I go? And, like, people were like, oh, why don't you go to your sisters and stuff? But at the time, my sister had just lost her 2 sons in a car accident. Oh. Wow. So they both died on the same day. They were 16 and 18. Man. And I know now that I wouldn't have been a burden, but at the time, I just was like, nah, my sister's not going to have this, me, a drug addict, along with, all the kids, even though, we've spoken about it since, and she was like, you should have just, but I just didn't want to put that on her, because, like, where I was at was like, I'm so messed up and stuff, like, I don't want her, after she's just suffered that huge loss, to have to, like, look after my kids and me as well, she's always done. But that was the wrong decision, I should have gotten out then again, but I didn't. So the police took my children, and then they ended up in Oranga Tamariki, which is Child, Youth and Family, and they sent them all on a flight, and I didn't know any of this, to Christchurch from Tauranga. And so the next day I managed to get, help from Women's Refuge and into the place, which was just, I cried. I cried the first night I was there, because we had been trying to get in there. Like, I had been trying to get in there with my girls for ages, and then I was told there's no room.
Oh, wow.
And then the night that, my girls are taken from me, and they, I looked up and there was 3 beds. And I was just, like, crying, because I was like, if, they had got there sooner or whatever, they could have been sleeping in those 3 beds,
Yeah.
But I was just in a real messed up space. Like, the meth aside, like, that done its damage on top of, but I was very emotionally and mentally challenged. Like, I didn't know, like, I wanted my kids to be safe, but I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
There's this book called The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, and it talks about, it's actually written from the demon's perspective towards us, so flipped around a little bit. And one advice that the demon gives, and I've said this before on the podcast a number of times, but your story in particular, the advice that the demon gives he calls them their patients, which is us. He says, make your patient, or us, almost hit rock bottom, but make sure they never hit rock bottom. You want them to be miserable, but never hit rock bottom hard enough for them to land on their knees. Because when they're on their knees, they'll cry out to the Lord.
Yes.
And that's when they are strong.
Yep.
and they're just trying to keep you just that little bit off.
Yeah.
Do you find that that's where
Yes.
you were sitting for a long, long time?
Yes, absolutely. And when my children were taken and I realised, and because I got a social worker and all that sort of stuff, I realised like what had happened, and like I was sober, you know, I wasn't on it again. I was just healing up, and when I realised like what had occurred, I went from that place of holding area like you describe to rock bottom, because I'd lost my children.
Yeah.
So I'd lost my partner, even though things weren't good. And I lost my children as well. And that was it. That was like the final straw for me, was my kids gone. And in the way it was done as well, like I was abandoned and left there injured. Like the police didn't even get me women's refuge or, you know.
Yeah.
And I couldn't walk, so like the next day,
you were beaten up.
Yeah.
By your partner.
Yeah,
You were already had a mangled foot.
yeah,
From a car accident a few months ago. Then you had your kids robbed of you, so
Yeah.
emotionally that.
and they
toll.
had watched it, so that was
wow.
playing over in my head. My little girl's
Watching you get-
traumatized face, and like she had this little bottle of Pamol, you know, the little baby strawberry Pamol stuff, and like when the police came, she was only 3, and she come out and she gave it to me, and she said, "You can have my medicine, Mummy, if you need it,
Oh wow!
because you've been hurt," you know, and like I still can see that in my mind, like her face. Yeah. So I had like all this stuff, but it was like all the trauma came and met me at one raw point, like, you know, like the loss of my kids. Like, even though my life had been really traumatic, my kids had been my anchor point.
Yeah.
You know, like I felt like when my kids were born, God used my kids to give me hope.
That's the reason to keep going.
You know, like, like I felt like, because when I was young, like I felt so unloved that when my kids come along, I felt like, yay, God's given me something to love,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
absolutely.
Somewhere to put my love, and then they'll love you back. And when I, you know, found out that, oh no, they've been taken, and just all of that, I just spiraled. Like, I was already like a live on the edge person anyway, push the limits. But when my kids got taken, I just went hunting. I went hunting for death,
Wow.
you know. Like I was just like, nah. And like the government, you know, Child, Youth and Family were like, you're never going to get them back. You know, painting up pictures of me that were half-truths. You know, some of it was true, but a lot of it was just, you know, bigger than
Yeah.
what it was meant to be.
Yeah.
So there I am facing, you know, like, oh, okay, I've lost my kids now, and, you know, pretty much every woman that's been on meth for a long time will lose her kids,
Right.
you know. That's pretty much just like the circle that I was in. None of them had kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
They'd all been taken off
Wow.
by the government.
So what'd you do that night, or those coming
So
weeks or
like
months?
just for the next, between April and August, I just you know, like I just spiraled. I spiraled out of control. Like I wanted to go and fight for my kids, but I didn't know how, you know, because they had just been whipped to Christchurch, and like I didn't even know that all this stuff was happening, you know, like the legal things that, oh, they're trying to get custody of them, and you know, like that I was going to lose them forever, basically. But I couldn't even deal with any of that in my mind because I was still processing like being injured and just there was so much, on me. But I know that they were my darkest days, So, yeah, as I said before, I went out looking for death. I went into risky situations with dodgy-ass characters anywhere I could, pretty much daily. And then I was attempting to kill myself, heaps of those times. And just getting into really bad things in the hope that one of them would end my life.
Did you have any support around you? Like, did you have your family kind of...
No, I'd shut my family off. I was lying to them most of the time because, underneath all of it, I was ashamed or I was just really messed up. Like, till this day, I cannot realise, I don't even realise how messed up I was. Like, to this day, my head cannot unscramble that mess. I still can't pinpoint, oh, this is why, or it's so messy that I can't. But I know what I do know is that I wanted to die and I didn't care what the price was. I know that. That's why I was going out all the time, just looking for death, riding in fast cars,
So what was the...
It's dangerous behaviour.
Yeah. What was the turning point from that part of your life?
So the turning point from that part of my life was an encounter with the Lord. So I come back, from a party one night, and it was just like... I was so broken, and I was I didn't want to live anymore, but at the same time felt like I couldn't die. It felt like something was intervening, but I see it now, but I just didn't understand it back then.
Yeah.
It was just this is just stupid, my brother died, he killed himself quickly.
Yeah.
Why don't things like that work for me, or why hasn't this happened? Or it was, it was kind of like a place of deep sorrow, and I just remember coming back from this party, and I was out with a guy that's mother had been murdered, and all these roads, when I look back, they all point to God. Every single one of them, in some strange, weird or marvellous way, I can see him in my whole life story. But why this guy stands out is because he used to be a Christian. And then he was telling me that. And I could feel the pull, towards God, in that moment. I don't really know how to describe it, but it was I was kind of getting woken up a bit,
Like you were numb that whole time.
Yeah, and then when he started
feeling.
talking, because I was man, why are you talking about God for? I just thought it was such a weird thing for a dude, at a party to talk about. It was real strange. And he didn't smoke pee or anything. He was a drinker, but I just was well, you sure know how to kill the conversation. What a weird one. And then he was oh, no, I just mention it because, my mum was murdered and stuff, and my dad done it. And then I was oh, okay.
His dad murdered his mum?
Yes. Wow. And I was thinking, this is twisted, because I just wanted to stay in that zone of I can't feel.
Yeah.
Because when I felt, I just wanted to die. But even that place of high, I now wanted to die, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do life anymore. And so he was talking about that. And then when he was talking about, like, through God, he's been, able to work towards forgiveness, But then he said, but I'm a backslider and all this other stuff. And I was like, okay. And then I was reminded of those twins that had, And then I was like, I don't know what's going on here. This is real weird. But for a moment there, that happened. And it was like, when I look back, that was God starting to wake me up for what came next. So I went home that morning, and then I just remember saying, like, I'm done. I'm over this existence. Like, I didn't even like I didn't want to live like that anymore.
Yeah.
Not only a drug addict, but I just didn't want to live with that level of pain. Like, it was painful to exist, It was like all of my traumatic memories from my childhood and from my adulthood, and then what was happening just came to a big meet in the middle, along with my addiction. And so this is where things started to change. So I said a prayer, well, what I know to be a prayer now, but at the time it was just I actually meant it. The scary thing is I actually meant it when I said it. So I said this, I was just sitting there and I said, murder me, God. Then I paused and said, or let the devil murder me, because I'm done.
Wow.
And I meant it. Like, I absolutely meant it with all of me, that I can't do this anymore. Like, I don't care if I go to hell. This is how crushed I was. I don't care if I go to hell as long as it's not here, because this hell surely can't be worse than that hell, Like, they must be the same, but just I want to translocate sort of thing.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was asking, I thought I did. And so I just said that, in that place of brokenness. And then it would have been not long, maybe a minute or two later, I heard a voice. And the voice said, I will not turn away from a contrite heart and a broken spirit.
Wow.
And I was like, first thoughts, that was weird. Second thoughts was, what's contrite mean? Because you got to remember, like, I'm still semi-high in this moment.
Yeah.
And I've had lots of out of this world experiences.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm tripping. But as that was said, I came to know who was talking to me, if that makes sense. Like, so it was that initial shock of like, am I high? Am I hearing things? And then as he kept speaking, I then knew, no, this is Jesus, And I just knew. I knew with every fibre of my being who he was.
Was this after the party that you're talking to this?
Yeah, so that was after the party, and I'd gone home, and because throughout that whole time, like, I was just suicidal. Like, I was just, doing stupid things and going to stupid, dangerous places with dodgy people that, hurt people for fun, hoping that would be me,
Yeah.
Like, because I was just so broken. Like, I was like, I've got no kids, and just all of it. But the kids were the final,
Yeah, the last
like
straw.
the last
Yeah.
straw of the camel breaking the back. And yeah, I just remember feeling like real, like ultra empty after that conversation. And then like on the walk home, I was just like, oh no, I'm done. And so, like in between all this, I was homeless, and like obviously there's quite a lot to the story. So I'm just cutting things short. But I had moved in with my dad at this time. So I was walking back to my dad's place. And yeah, I said that because I was just like, no, I've had enough of this, like I'm over it. And yeah, so he said that. And then when I realised what it was like, he said that, then I saw the meaning. Because it was like from my head to my spirit man.
Yeah.
And he said quite a few things to me, and I said to him, I actually love this feeling, of his presence, and I'd like to follow you, but then I'd be lying because I'm an addict, and when you go, I'll just, go back to the meth. And he said to me, if you choose to follow me, I'll take it from you. And I just remember being like, you know what? I've got nothing else to lose. I've lost it all. But the mercy, his mercy just sticks with me, so much happened to me in that night. He just changed me.
Wow.
So not only did he supernaturally deliver me of the meth, so when I woke up the next morning, I didn't want it.
Wow.
I was set free.
And that does not happen.
It doesn't. Well, it does.
Well,
I know of a couple of people now
yeah,
here in New Zealand that's had the same experience
with
the
God.
Lord. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's
But
what I
only
mean.
very rare.
Outside of the Lord,
Yes.
that just
No, it doesn't.
it
It
has
doesn't.
that those hooks in you.
Yep. And it doesn't because, like my journey.
Did you have any withdrawals?
No.
Wow.
No come down.
That is
And he promised me
insane.
that as well, because I said, oh, but if you take it, then I'll have to have the come down, and I've already been up for like 10 days at that stage, so I was looking to a 2-week recovery
wow.
time,
Wow.
and was not looking forward to that. And he said, no, I'll take it from you. And then I said to him, I'd done the Mary, let it be so then, Like
Wow.
Mary, when the angel came and said,
Yeah.
she said, yeah, I'd done that. I said, okay.
So overnight, you had
Overnight,
all
I
your
was changed. So
addictions.
overnight, I was born again. No, hang on. Overnight, I was repenting.
Yeah.
So he showed me like videos and understood of my life. And I understood what contrite meant, was that he was saying to me that my heart was broken, and my spirit was broken, and that I actually didn't want to be doing these things. And so he showed me that part of my heart of true repentance.
Yeah.
He showed me the truth and everything, what actual repentance means.
Yeah.
I was on my hands and knees, on my face actually, for about 3 or 4 days flat,
Wow.
crying before the Lord.
Yeah.
And in between that, got up, is this real? Just, it was such a bizarre, because you got to remember, I was smoking meth every single day before that.
Yeah. And I got so many goosebumps right now hearing that.
Just pinching myself and oh my gosh, I don't want it. And then I started smashing my pipes and getting rid of the needles and all that stuff. And then some of my using friends came, that day after I was set free. And they said, oh, what are you up to? You want to puff? And da-da-da-da. They brought it. I said, hey, you need to get that demonic drug away from me. And they were like, what? You know? and I was like, no, I'm with Jesus now. I serve Jesus. And then they were like, oh my gosh, what happened to you? You know, what weird trip, you know? Wow. And I said, no, he's real. And that stuff there, that belongs to the devil, man.
That would have to have an impact, because these people know that the hooks
They knew me because they used to smoke with me all the time.
Yeah.
Well, they would have the same hooks in them. They would know how hard it would be to go switch. Let me rephrase that. They would know how totally impossible it would be to switch. Yeah. And that when they come to see you the next couple of days and you're just saying no.
Yeah, and because, like, there's a difference, like, you know, like when I said to you before, I got off it when I was pregnant. I was smoking it with my daughter when I was pregnant. Like, she did not, that pregnancy did not stop me from smoking it, because it's a full-on addiction.
Yeah.
The pain stopped me from smoking later, and the inaccessibility, because we'd moved back here, and it was not as good, and not as cheap, you know. But understanding that I was still an addict, does that make sense? Like, I refrained, but there was still that beast inside of me going, get the pee, you know?
That pull.
But when the Lord set me free, that beast was gone.
Wow.
You know, so I woke up like I'd never done it.
That is amazing.
Like I'd never touched it.
Wow.
But I still had the memories of
this other person.
Of that life, like I still do now, but I don't fiend. I don't crave. The demons came after that, trying to tempt me back. Yeah. I could see it for what it was.
So that scripture where it says, you are now a new creation.
Yes.
That's got a whole new meaning for you.
So for me, in that moment, like, he spoke and he said some other things, you know, that are still to come. But when he came, I felt like that prostitute. Like when he first came and spoke to me, I felt like that prostitute at his feet, the one that anoints his feet with her hair, you know.
Yeah, that's right, with the oil.
Just the mercy.
Yep.
Like his mercy. Like, I didn't feel like worthy. I just thought, man, what did you come here to me? I'm the scum of the earth. Wow. You know, I don't deserve his presence.
Yeah.
Like, the mercy. Wow. Sorry, I'm just, I can always, every time I talk about it, I can still feel it like it was yesterday. But
it's when you know it's real.
I just feel it. I always do, every single time I talk about it. I couldn't understand, like, why would the God of this universe come to me? You know, like, I hadn't, like, called him. I'd called him to murder me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't understand that I had a heart that was ready to repent or whatever, that was broken. Like, I knew I was broken, but yeah. And his mercy just, his mercy amazes me. Like, in that time of repentance, he showed me all the things that I'd done wrong. And I was sorry for them. Like, that's why I was crying on and off 3 days, you know. And when that was the time that I was born again. So, like, this all happened at the same time. And all the supernatural stuff happened. I got supernatural downloads from heaven. Just all this stuff happened all in, like, a week, right? But he said to me, you know, what would it matter? He wasn't saying that this was true, but he was trying to say to me, you know, like, realize this. He said, what would it matter if nobody loved you? I love you. And that was the moment that my heart just went boom, you know.
Wow. Yeah, that love would
like
have
melted. His love melted me on the spot. Like, I remember, like, the Bible talks about, you know, having a heart of stone, and giving you a heart of flesh, that was the minute that he gave me a heart of flesh.
Wow.
Like I felt it. I just was like dead, and then I was alive. All of the weight of the things that I've done, they were lifted.
So you
and
had
then I heard
pastor there, you had no person there praying
one-on-one.
With you and the Lord.
One-on-one encounter.
Wow.
And then I heard the words, "You are forgiven." And that was it. I didn't need no man or no people to tell me anything. I knew it. You know? Like I knew it in my spirit. I've been forgiven.
Yeah.
And that weight, that burden of sin. And so like I was going out getting pink clothes, you know, like I was like, you know, like when I first got set free, I was like a kid in a candy shop.
Yeah.
Like I was so happy. And my dad, he was like, "Oh, what's the matter with you? Are you back on those drugs?" And, you know, because I was like, "Oh, God set me free," you know.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, my gosh, what's going on with you?" You know. And then I said to him, you know, God said to me that he's going to open up a door for me to get my children back. He's going to, you know, restore my children to me. And my dad was like, "Oh, no, you know, the government said you're never getting them back, da-da-da-da-da." And I was like, "But God told me," you know. And so throughout this journey, I've had to hold on to that promise because in the natural it did not look anything like what he said. But over the years, I've got 2 of my girls back and the third one's coming. It's in the transition.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is amazing.
huge.
You know?
Wow.
And no one believed me. Like the naysayers were all out there like, "Oh, you're just a crazy drug addict." But I knew that I was hearing the voice of the Lord.
Yeah.
You know, because he changed me. He changed me from the inside out.
Yeah.
Like the divine, you know, instant getting me off the drugs, and I've never touched it since. That's just one element. Like my life has been sanctified by him. You know?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Before I met him, I used to sleep around and stuff. I don't do that anymore. I was consecrated the day that he spoke to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Hallelujah. Wow.
And didn't have to fight it.
Yeah.
It was just,
So
you know, like that's unclean now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But back then when you're in it, like you can't see the difference.
So for anybody that might struggle with addiction in any shape or form, and they're listening to this right now, what would be something that you would want to say to them that would bring them to God, that you could, if you had that chance?
I would say cry out to God. He loves you and he can set you free. Yep.
Wow.
He's got the power to set you free. I wasn't even asking for it. I was asking for an end to my life. But he came and he restored my life. And he took all of that and is now beginning to use it for the good.
Yeah.
You know, my story, the pain that I've been through, the addiction that I've been through, I'm now helping other people that are going through the same things. And I can love them in that place that they're at because I understand what it's like to walk in that darkness alone. You know, I can just walk beside them without judgment. But the mercy of, you know, you might think, "Oh, you know, I'm too bad for God," or "I'm too far gone," but nobody's too far gone for him. You know, while we're still alive, while you've got the chance, he can come and save you and he can pull you out of that, the darkest places. He's got the power, you know. You only have to believe.
Yeah.
It's true. Wow.
You know, the Bible's like full of stories that in their form, they're the simplest things. The Bible's very simple and following God is simple, you know. I think humans, we overcomplicate it,
Yeah.
you know. We bring like religion and all that sort of stuff. But when I met him face to face, my whole world changed.
Yeah.
My whole life changed. I'm a different person. Like if you had said to me 4 years ago that I'd be sitting here talking about Jesus and all the other stuff, you know, leading up to here, it's all about the Lord.
Yeah.
You know, I only came here to talk today to glorify the Lord
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I didn't get myself out of that mess. The Lord did,
Mm. Yeah.
you know.
And you've been
he
able to
brought me
build.
out.
Yeah, you've been able to build a relationship with Christ ever since.
Yes, and got my instructions from the Holy Spirit himself.
Yeah. Wow.
So, you know, when you read the Bible and stuff, and it says, like, you know, go to the teacher, the Holy Spirit will teach you and guide you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's true. Wow.
And, like, I know these concepts that they talk about in church because I've experienced them through the Holy Spirit speaking
Yeah.
about it directly to me.
Does he speak to you the same way as the first time God spoke to you? You know, like, or has it kind of changed?
If
as
I'm
you've
getting a
matured?
growling, yes.
Yeah.
You're getting a growling.
You know? If I'm getting convicted of something, yep.
Yeah.
But he still speaks to me, like, personally.
Wow.
Yep.
That is absolutely amazing. That is such an amazing story. Amazing
But he
testimony.
just he loves everyone, and he doesn't want, you know, like, he
Doesn't
doesn't
want one
want
to
us
perish.
in that, and he doesn't want us living in that brokenness either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I, like, had no idea, like, because had like a spirit of rejection on me. I had a whole bunch of demons on me. You know,
Yeah.
the lifestyle I was living. But his love. Yeah, it's true. Perfect love casts out all fear.
Yeah.
Like, because so, like, even though I was, you know, delivered and, like, all of that stuff, which is absolutely amazing, in the natural, I was still poor. I was still pretty homeless, except staying with my dad, and I still didn't have my children. But the Lord, he just restored everything. Like, he made it so that someone paid my flight to Christchurch.
Wow.
And then when I got to Christchurch, a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in years lived here and said, come stay with me. And then
Wow.
got me work, and then got me a lawyer. And then
Wow.
got to see my kid, just all of it.
Yeah.
But I walked by faith to get there.
Yeah.
I had to listen to the voice of the Lord,
Yeah.
you know, very closely to be led. You know, and I seemed absolutely nuts to everybody that knew me. They were like, what is she up to? Like, moving to Christchurch with no money? Like, how's she going to get there?
Yeah.
But I didn't care, because that's the voice of the devil, you know?
That
I
is
was just like,
amazing.
nah, you spoke to me. You've done this. I'm off the drugs. You know, I feel happy again.
Yeah.
Like, it was just gone. Like, you're carrying around this heavy, heavy weight, and you don't even know you're carrying it around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just poof, gone.
That's amazing.
I just remember being like on cloud nine, you know, Jesus, everything. It was just annoying everybody. You know, they're like, oh no, here's the Jesus freak at my work.
Yeah.
I was testifying to them, you know. There was an older guy there, and he had a son that was on drugs, and I said, you know, Jesus can set him free. Little did I know that guy was a backslidden Christian. And he said, oh no, I hope God didn't, he said to me, I hope God didn't send you here to get me back. And I said, oh, you never know. But yeah, I was like, workplace of like 500, I think there was. And I was just like, Jesus, 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 you know.
He's all you could talk about.
That's all I could talk about, because I wouldn't have been there without him,
Yeah.
you know. And like, I'd pray. We'd had a cafeteria, and I'd pray over my food. And they'd come in, and some of them would mock, you know, oh, she's talking to herself again or whatever. I'd be like, no, I'm talking to Jesus, you know, because he set me free.
Amen.
And then they were like, I think they were hoping that I'd be like shy or whatever, but nah, I'm not shy when it comes to the Lord, you know, because
Yeah.
He's the reason I'm still here. He's the reason that I've got my daughters, that my daughters are doing quite well, you know, despite what they've been through.
Yeah. You said earlier that there's been other people that you've known that have had the same thing. with meth and them being set free just like that. So, did you meet them afterwards? Did you?
Yeah.
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 Wow.
So just, I've been to a few, not conferences, but like Christian get-togethers and stuff.
yeah.
And then,
And they've been there.
just meth has come up, as
Yeah.
a conversation of like what's going on and stuff. And then I was like, oh yeah, well, this is my history. And then they're like, oh my gosh, similar,
Wow.
to them.
Yeah.
And it's because, God wants to bring people out of that. It's time,
Yeah.
There's many people like me getting pulled out,
Yeah.
It's the time now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a guy called David Watson, one of your friends,
Yes.
and he sent me this incredible song that he wrote just for you because he felt spiritually prompted to write this amazing song, and I'm going to play it at the end of this podcast, so you can stick around for that. It's very, very divinely written, and we're gonna finish up here. Is there anything else you wanted to say, Hineatu?
I really want to say that, if you're there and you're struggling and you're walking in the darkness and you feel like nobody loves you and that you wouldn't be missed, if you call out to God, He'll answer you and He'll meet you in the place where you are, just as you are.
That's good. That is really, really powerful.
And He's real.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Hineatu, for being with us on the Jesus Magnet podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You have an incredible story. Really, really incredible. So stay till the end if you want to hear that song. And just remember that only God can turn a trial into a triumph, a victim into a victory, a mess into a message, and a test into a testimony. We'll see you next time on the Jesus Magnet podcast.
We don't understand it. We'll never know the depths of despair. Don't know the reason why. Made in the image of God. How beautiful you are. I say how beautiful you are. I say how beautiful you are. I know He made you. He made you just the way you are. Just the way you are. Made in the image. How beautiful you are. How beautiful you are. Made in the image of God. Made in the image of God.